Welcome everyone, happy Tuesday. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. It is top of the hour and I do want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Renika Lightborn. I'm always honored when I have the opportunity to connect with Ms. Chantelle Owens from the Georgia Tax Lien Bootcamp, as she's going to be our guest speaker today. So thank you so much, Chantelle.
Thanks for having me, Renika. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So Chantelle's going to talk through the tax lien process, some of the differences between a tax lien and a tax deed, also the interest rate based on, what state you may be located in, and some of the tools that you can use as a tax lien investor. Before I hand it over, I do want to give you just a high-level overview of what self-direction is and some of the steps you can take when you're ready to get started with Advanta. If you have questions, feel free to put those in the question box. We will allocate time at the very end to make sure we get those answered for you. Again, my name is Renika Lightborn. I'm one of the business development specialists. I've been with Advanta as an employee for a little over 2 years now, but I'm also a client of Advanta as I personally self-direct my account for about 4 years. If you have any questions related to self-directed IRAs, definitely feel free to give me a call, send me an email, or I would encourage you to visit our website at advantaira.com for more information. Just a little history about Advanta and who we are. So we've been in the business for nearly 20 years. We are recognized as one of the leading self-directed IRA administrators in the industry. Our headquarters is in Largo, Florida, which is the general Tampa Bay area. Advanta also has an office in Atlanta, which is where I'm based. But we do work with clients nationwide as we have almost $2 billion under our administration. For clients who have uninvested cash sitting with us, it is FDIC insured. Also, too, one of the ways that we take great pride in setting ourselves apart is providing you, our clients, that concierge style service, meaning that you have a dedicated account manager who's going to be assigned to you for the life of your account with us. And then, of course, our educational platform, having experts and guest speakers and practitioners like Ms. Chantelle Owens, coming to knowledge share with you about the different investment options available. So three key takeaways. First and foremost, know that any IRA or former employer plan qualifies to be self-directed. 2, you're always in control, so you choose the investment that works best for you. 3, any income generated from that investment flows back into the IRA. Any expenses associated with that investment is paid by the IRA. So for example, in a tax lien scenario, if you have to pay property taxes, the IRA is actually going to cover that expense. Just a little housekeeping before we go any further. At Advanta, we don't give any tax, legal, or investment advice. All of the information that we present to you is just educational purposes. So we always encourage you to please, do your due diligence, confer with your professional team. Always, make sure you understand who you're investing with or what you're investing in. So exactly what is a self-directed IRA? A self-directed IRA gives you, the account owner, complete control over the retirement funds and also the investment decision. It allows you, the IRA owner, to invest in alternative assets that includes, but not limited to, the likes of, say, real estate, notes and mortgages, private placements, cryptocurrency, and so much more. But of course, today we're going to focus specifically on tax liens. Again, self-directed IRA, very high level, simply just means it gives you the option to get outside of the publicly traded market like stocks and bonds, and then you pick and choose investments that you would feel more comfortable with. So hopefully, and also give you better, a chance for better yields. So for instance, if tax lien is your preferred strategy, maybe you get, better interest returns as opposed to what you can get in the stock market. So why do people choose to self-direct? You can look to self-direct for any number or combinations of reasons. I'm just going to highlight, 3 of them. 1, you might look to use IRA funds just as a way to unlock different sources of money for a particular investment. So instead of going to a bank and taking out a loan or tapping into your personal savings that you might have set aside, as a rainy day fund, the IRA is just giving you a way to source just additional capital for, your next investment. If you have funds that's sitting in an old 401k, you can elect to roll those over and to make that tax lien investment. 2, again, I mentioned in the stock market, the ups and downs, the fatigue of that, having your IRA or your 401k fluctuate based on, something that's out of your control or some global event. With self-direction, we know it always gives you the ability to maintain or gain some type of control because you get to decide what is it that your IRA invests in. So again, with tax liens, you can, if your strategy is interest payments or you actually have the ability to get access to a tangible asset that real estate we know always holds value. And of course, being able to diversify your account. And then finally, the tax benefits, the benefit of having your self-directed IRA have those rents, those dividends, those profits, those incomes generated back into, flow back into the IRA, tax-free or tax deferred, just depending on the type of account that you have. So as far as the different types of accounts that can be self-directed, whether it's a traditional IRA, which is tax deferred, or a Roth IRA, which is after-tax dollars for individuals. If you are a small business owner, you can look to self-direct a SEP or simple IRA. At Advanta, we also offer individual solo 401k plans. We usually see a lot of entrepreneurs and real estate investors use the solo 401k because you have greater flexibility. You can also self-direct some lesser-known accounts, so an ESA to cover educational expenses for your children, or an HSA to cover medical-related expenses. And then again, any former employer plan, like a 401k, 403b, 457, or TSP plan, can also be self-directed. A lot of times when you leave employment, that 401k maybe just be sitting there idle or often forgotten. You can elect to roll those funds over to make that investment. The key thing that you want to remember is the different contribution levels. And then of course with your Roth account, it is tax-free at retirement once you've had that account for at least 5 years. So in terms of getting started with us, we've really condensed that down into 3 simple steps for you. First and foremost, step 1, complete the application to get your account open. You can do that online, but you'll also have someone to walk you through that process. Once your account is open with us, you will have that assigned account manager. When you're ready to make an investment, they'll be there to guide you through that paperwork. Step 2 is funding your account. You can elect to roll funds over from that former employer plan as mentioned. You can transfer from an existing IRA. There's no tax liabilities for you to do that. It's not end all be all. So you choose whatever amount that you want to move over to make that investment. Or you can make a cash contribution based on the type of account that you have, or a combination of all 3. And then finally, step 3, start investing. What is it that you're interested in? If you're a tax lien investor, you've had a chance to attend one of the tax lien boot camp and learn how to invest properly in tax lien. You can take that knowledge and that skill set and apply it in your IRA and go out and build retirement wealth. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share, make Chantelle the presenter.
Okay. So do you see my presenter screen or do you see the actual presentation?
So I see your screen with the next slide being visible.
Okay. All right. So I switched it. So you should now see the presentation.
Exactly. Yes, I do.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Renika, for having me. I'm always excited to be here with Advanta. I actually met you, Renika, here at Advanta. You came to a presentation just like this.
Absolutely.
And actually also a student, so always great to work with you. So, all right, so let's get started. Welcome everyone. I am Chantelle Owens, and I am the CEO and founder of Georgia Tax Lien Bootcamp. And today I'm going to teach you all about tax liens, and I'm going to do that also through sharing my story today. So let's get started. So before I jump into anything about me, I just want to walk you through a story. So she paid $2,100. Now, who she is, don't worry about that right now, but just listen. She paid $2,100 for a property that had an after repair value of $150,000. Did y'all hear that? I know some of you probably don't believe that, or you're wondering how that's possible. We're going to talk about it, but that is actually what got me interested in tax lien investing. When I saw the full power of leverage in tax lien investing, I was hooked. So this was a property that was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot in Ellenwood, Georgia. The original owner had a mortgage on the property for $139,000, and was upside down in it when Tasha came along and bought the property for $2,100 in the tax sale. So just hold on, I'm gonna get to that. So exactly what are tax liens? As I know, tax liens is like the mythical unicorn. You hear things about it, but you're not for sure what's true, what's false, you know. And I hear a lot of miseducation or surrounding tax liens. So I want to get into that today and clear some of that up. So what is a tax lien? Simply put, if property taxes aren't paid, the county will file a superior lien, and superior is the key word here. A superior lien and on the property in the deed records, so it can be sold for that the amount of the back taxes owed. So that's simply all a tax lien is. It's just like any other lien that's filed in the county courthouse records, except it is a superior lien, which means it will supersede other liens that are on the title, to include mortgage liens, homeowner association liens, mechanic liens, creditor liens. So it's a very powerful lien. So let's talk about that. So the recorded lien is filed in the county deeds record, right? That's simply what a tax lien is. Now, many people will interchange tax lien with tax lien certificate, tax deed, or redeemable deed. But the tax lien itself is neither of those. The tax lien itself is just the lien as it is filed in the county courthouse records. So hopefully everybody's with me on that. Now, after it goes to auction or if it's up for sale, what the investor receives is a tax deed, a tax lien certificate, or a redeemable tax deed. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's talk about those. So you have something that's called a judicial tax deed. A judicial tax deed is basically a deed that has gone through all the judicial processes because the county itself has taken that deed or that tax lien through that process, and then they will sell it outright. So once they sell this particular type of deed, then there's no interest to be earned, and the person who receives this deed will have full marketable rights to sell the property. So that's a judicial tax deed. A non-judicial tax deed is what most people are familiar with. So it's a lien that the county has filed in the county courthouse records, and now they're just going to take that and sell it as a tax deed. They have not gone through any judicial processes. So once you receive this particular type of deed, again, there's not going to be any interest earned. You will have rights, but the marketable title will depend. It will depend on the state. In some states, you will have to do an additional legal process called a quiet title in order to receive a marketable title, meaning in order to receive a title in which any other lien on that title is considered canceled. And that's the most common tax deed, is the non-judicial tax deed. Then we have what are called redeemable tax deeds. So it's very similar to the non-judicial tax deed, meaning it has not gone through any legal process. It's just the county is taking its lien for back taxes owed and selling it at auction. And in this case, when you receive the tax deed, you do not have rights to the property, at least not right away, because when you see the word redeemable in front of tax deed, what that means is that there's going to be a redemption period in which the homeowner or anyone who has interest in the property, any other lien holders, can come back and redeem that tax deed, meaning they would have to pay the investor, and if that's you, they would have to pay you what you paid at auction plus whatever interest is deemed by that state. There are only a handful of redeemable deed states in the United States, so just 5. Georgia, where I'm at, happens to be one of those. So it's like Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Connecticut, and one other. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but only a handful. So if you live in one of those states, then you'd have to look in that state to see what the interest rate would be that you would earn. So here in Georgia, it's 20%. In Texas, it's 25%. So that's a hefty interest rate. So then we have tax lien certificates. Tax lien, and this is the word that really a lot of people confuse with tax liens. So like tax liens and then tax lien certificate. So the lien is what's filed in the county courthouse records. We've already defined that. But the tax lien certificate is what you receive as an investor if you purchase that lien. You receive the certificate. And a certificate does not convey any property rights whatsoever. It just only entitles the bearer to receive interest upon redemption. So it's very similar to a redeemable tax deed, except that the redeemable tax deed, you see it has the word deed in it. So when you receive it, you do have interest in the property, although you don't have full interest. Versus when you receive a tax lien certificate, you have absolutely no interest rights in that property. You're only entitled to receive the interest. Now, tax lien certificates, if the redemption period expires, in many states, you can then apply to the county for the actual tax deed. And in some states, they will actually put that tax lien certificate back into auction. And if someone purchases that tax lien certificate at auction the second time, then that's how you will be reimbursed your money plus whatever interest is owed to you. So that's how tax lien certificates work. So now that we kind of know, we have some basic definitions of what's meant by tax liens. And tax liens, when we say tax liens, it's just a category that houses, judicial, non-judicial tax deeds, redeemable tax deeds, and tax lien certificates. So when we say tax liens, we're referring to all of that. So why invest in tax liens? So, what's the big deal? Well, there's several benefits. One, they, help avoid government shutdown because tax liens are actually derived from property taxes when people don't pay their property taxes. So high delinquency in property taxes lead to a lot of areas in government being shut down. A great example of that, a national example of that will be Flint, Michigan. Most people are familiar with the corruption surrounding, the lead in the water, but they're not as familiar with there being a high tax delinquency rate there as well. And so when you start to see that happen, you're going to start to see a lot of decline in county services. Another example, maybe not so national, but pretty well known here in Georgia, is Clayton County lost its school accreditation. And they also at the very same time had a high property tax delinquency rate. And so it has a direct effect. So things that you'll see decline if property taxes aren't being paid, or if the government or if the county is not allowed to take these properties to auctions, you will see governments not being able to meet their payroll. So, that includes police officers, firefighters, judges, lawyers, county medical workers, sanitation, water facilities. So it plays a huge role in keeping the county running because a big portion of the county's budget comes from property taxes. So that's one reason But I know you all are probably not here for that reason. I always give that reason because some people ethically have an issue with tax liens. And so that's one area that a lot of people don't consider when they, have that ethical debate, is that without tax lien investors, you would see a lot of county governments shutting down. But what you all came for, I'm sure, is the financial benefit of tax liens to you, the investor, which is you can literally buy properties for pennies on the dollars. And this is the hardest part for people to wrap their mind around, is that first example I gave you, is that Tasha was able to purchase a property that was worth $150,000 for $2,100, right? But the county is not looking to make a profit off the properties. They're just looking for their revenue. So most states won't allow the county to sell it and receive a profit. So they literally have to sell it for what's owed to them. And so that's how you have this example of being able to purchase properties for pennies on the dollar. And then just the leverage that can provide to especially someone who has retirement funds, being able to invest in a vehicle that can bring a high yield and is a relatively low risk investment, because with tax liens, the interest rates are always set by the state, so it's not market based. So even though, let's say, we're in the market we're in, any tax liens that are purchased, let's say in Georgia, still have a rate of return of 20%, if it's redeemed. Same thing in, Texas. Like the rates for tax lien redemptions are very rarely changed. So if you have a portfolio, you can leverage that. All right, so let's just take a look at some other states. These are some of the highest interest rates nationally. Again, Texas is 25% with redeemable deeds. Georgia is 20% with redeemable deeds. And I will tell y'all a secret. In many states, if the redemption period has expired, so let's just say in Georgia, the redemption period is 365 days. On day 366, that interest rate actually increases another 10%. So you literally could make 30%. Arizona is 24% with tax lien certificates, and Illinois is 18% with tax lien certificates. And Illinois has a 2-year redemption period. So you literally can make, that's 18% for 2 years. So literally you can make 36% interest on your money. So that's why invest in tax liens. Now, I know a lot of times people are solely stuck on actually getting the property, which that's a great thing. And, I'm an advocate for it. It's actually how I built my rental portfolio, and, how I made a living through tax lien investment is through being a property investor. But I always tell people, don't forget about the interest that you can make, especially if you have retirement funds. You could, really compound that and leverage that through getting the interest versus the property. So just an example of, tax lien. This is a tax deed. One of our students went to a tax deed state, was able to purchase a property for $4,500, and the after repair value was $271,000. And this was an online auction. So they actually went to the state and did their due diligence on the property, and came back home, and when it was time to bid, they actually won. Nobody bid against them on this property. So that's the power. And this particular student, this was in 2019, so the end of 2019, just right before we went into COVID. So a lot of times people want to know, how do you know so much about tax liens? Like, I'm not necessarily what I consider a likely candidate to be a tax lien investor. I actually just, fell into the industry. So I told you I would, tell you a little bit about me and my background and history so that you could understand and maybe relate to that and see how you could, get into tax lien investing, because I find that people are intimidated by tax lien investing, and I get it. I understand why, because I've also been in that position of being intimidated, but I kind of was just thrown in and came out swimming. And so now I just love sharing the knowledge in hopes of helping other people reach financial freedom, because it's a great vehicle to do that. So anyway, enlisted in the Army in 1992. In 1994, got my corporate start after being in the reserves, or still in the reserves, but started corporate America when I came home, and then in 98 said goodbye. And then 2001, while I was still working in corporate, someone asked me if they could use my credit to invest in real estate. And I made a significant amount of money, so much so that I told my job goodbye. And then that same year, when I went full time, there was also a market crash, y'all. So just 9 months after telling my job goodbye, full time in real estate, I ended up losing everything in real estate in the market crash of 2001. So by 2002, was able to get back in and do it all over again. And then in 2005, literally was living the lifestyle of, what most people consider a real estate investor. I was doing fixing and flipping by that time, and I had a huge portfolio of fix and flip properties and rental properties at that time. Also went on to get my real estate license in 2006. And in 2007, lo and behold, started feeling another market crash coming on. And I totally lost everything in that market crash. I had to file a multi-million-dollar bankruptcy because my whole entire portfolio at that time consisted of adjustable rate mortgages. And at that time, it was really the only way that you could buy, or the easiest way to buy a lot of property, investment property. And so I had all these mortgages that were adjusting and could not afford the mortgage because the rents were pretty much set in stone and no longer covered the mortgage. So not only did I lose my profit, the rent profit that I was making, because I probably was making about $200 to $300 per property. And at that time I had 17 properties, and no longer even making that, but now having to come up with the difference. So I no longer could handle that load. And by 2008, really lost everything, but there was a silver lining in losing that everything. So remember that house that I told you that Tasha paid $2,100 for? Well, that was actually my house, right? And I had a mortgage on it, and I was upside down in a mortgage. I, had a mortgage for $139,000, and at this time the property started, declining, and was, worth about $102,000. And she was able to buy that property for $2,100. So imagine that I'm on this side with a mortgage, and I'm upside down in the mortgage, and then she comes on this side, pays $2,100, and she's going to get the benefit of canceling that mortgage out with her lien, and now she has an instant $100,000 equity. So I was like intrigued, you know, first of all, I was upset, right? And, but then I became intrigued, like, wow, like, how does that really work? And I actually knew about tax liens at that point because I had read about tax liens in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki introduces you to a book called The 16% Solution. And I read that book. I had gone down to Fulton County. I had witnessed a tax sale and was totally intimidated, and really on site, on spot, decided that, you know, it wasn't for me. You know, it was just too much involved and just didn't want to be bothered. It was going to be easier to fix and flip. And that's what I did for the next 4 years until this actually happened. But I still had that in my mind and understood how tax liens worked. And what really prompted me to go into it, other than the numbers, was that Tasha herself, I called her and talked to her, and she absolutely had no real estate experience at all. She was a hairdresser and, you know, just happened to be at the courthouse steps that day and purchased this property, which, let me say, I do not recommend. She just happened to get lucky. I've seen so many people on the courthouse steps that, you know, they've done no due diligence. They bid on the property. They, you know, let's say they pay $2,100, or sometimes it could be 21,000 or even 100,000, thinking that they won this property when what they've actually won is just a strip of land next to the property. So I definitely encourage you not to just go out and bid, but to do your due diligence. But in this case, you know, she lucked up, and, you know, had I not been the wiser, she would have owned a property that was worth, you know, $102,000 for $2,100. But since I knew about tax lien investing, I knew that I had the right to redeem, and that's what I ended up doing with that property, is redeeming. And then after that, just hadn't looked back. I decided that was how I wanted to purchase property. And literally for the next 10 years, I only purchased property via tax sale. So basically, I reverse engineered that process. And at that time, I didn't have much money. So I used my bill money to buy my very first tax lien, not to redeem that property. I borrowed the money to redeem that property, but I wanted to get into tax lien investing. And I literally borrowed the money to buy my first, use my bill money to buy my first tax lien, because I could see, you know, yeah, I would be late and I would have to catch up, but the asset that I would own would be worth, you know, so much more. And like I said, literally, that's, you know, what I did. And so, you know, just want to leave you with, you know, 3 actionable steps, and not necessarily pertaining to tax lien, but I know most people who want to invest in tax lien want to do so because they want to be financially free. And what I always tell people is that, yes, tax lien is the vehicle I use, but ultimately it was really only 10% of the journey of becoming financially free. The 90% of that journey was really mindset, you know. And so I just want to leave you with 3, you know, tips, and then I'll open it up for questions, and I'll be here until you guys, you know, don't have any more questions. So my 3 keys to freedom. This is what I used. 1 is you have to have a freedom digit or a freedom number. Like, what is that number that's going to allow you to be free? Because once you get into tax lien investing, and I see this so many times with my colleagues, is that they're in real estate and they're just like going around in circles because they don't know when to get off. Like, what is your number? What number represents freedom to you? Whether that's a monthly number or just a lump sum number, that's, you know, totally up to you. You have to know that. And if you know that going into tax liens, you can decide on a great strategy, whether you want the properties, if you want the interest, you know, what if you get the property, your exit strategy, is it going to be buy and hold, is it going to be fix and flip, you know, but knowing that number can help you determine those things ahead of time to help you create that great strategy. And I know this may sound like fluff, but I see so many people just, you know, they leave their job or they want to leave their job because they feel like they're, you know, on the rat wheel, but then they just get into real estate and do the same thing. So, you know, they never really reach freedom. So that's one of the keys to that. The next thing is the freedom mantra. And mantra, you know, could be a goal or whatever, but having your goal, having your mantra, and really writing that down, making it a SMART goal, you know, so that it, you know, has a date to it, you know, and helping you realize that that is one of the things that I did. And so when tax lien investing came along, I was just able to utilize it to fit that goal. And then lastly, it's just having a network of people, a freedom network of like-minded people that can help you stay on that track, you know, of your number and your mantra. And, you know, that is what has helped me, you know, create financial freedom. And lastly, one of the things that really motivated me to continue on, you know, investing in tax liens when sometimes it could get hard, because it can get hard because you literally, out of, let's say 12 auctions in a year, I may go to 12 auctions. I may only win, you know, maybe 4 properties a year. So it could seem slow, but the leverage of those 4 properties, obviously, if you get a property that's worth, you know, if you buy a property, I've bought properties for $4,500, right? And then, you know, maybe at the time the property was only worth 4,000. Like I've bought properties in an area in Atlanta called Decatur, let's say, where the property when I purchased it was worth $40,000, $50,000, but you know, in a few years' time, those properties, you know, jump to 3, 4, some even $500,000. So the leverage of tax lien, even though it can seem like a long journey, is like, you know, once you get further down, the compound of what you purchased is, you know, what leads you there. But what helped me along in that journey is just being able to leave a legacy for my children, and not only for my children, but my children's children. Because along the journey of not even learning tax liens, but just investing in mindset, you know, I learned that there are certain things that you can do. So like with my estate, my children can't mortgage any of the properties. They can only benefit from the property, so that the properties will still move, you know, throughout the lineage. And so, so anyway, before I answer questions, I do want to invite you all out. We have a 3-hour class that goes a lot more in depth. It's a free class, and it goes a lot more in depth. It breaks things down a little bit more. We have a lunch break hour here, so I couldn't go as far as I wanted to, but just wanted to give you, you know, a glimpse of what tax lien investing is. But if you want to learn even more, you can join this class. So if you're interested, you can, you know, scan that QR code and go ahead and register now. You can also follow us on social media, which will lead you to how to register for that class. Or if you just want to type in the URL at the bottom and go ahead and register, you can. Again, that's free. There is a continuing education component to it. If you are a licensed real estate agent in Georgia or any reciprocating state, then you can take that class and get 3 hours CE credit. And but the CE credit is, well, you'll see the instructions on our site. But Renika, I'm gonna open it up for questions, and if you could assist me with reading those questions, that would be great.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Great information as always. So we do have a bunch of questions that came in. The first one is, I saw a property going for 15,000 at a tax lien, but sold for 120,000. Where does the 105,000 go?
okay, so that is what is considered surplus or overages, and it is anybody that has an interest in that property is entitled to that. So the homeowner, the mortgage company, HOA, creditor, whoever has a lien on that property is entitled to apply for those funds.
Okay, next question is, once you buy the tax lien, can you take out insurance on the property? Sometimes people who get foreclosed destroy it or burn the property.
Absolutely. You just have to find a insurance company that's willing to insure it. There are companies that insure it, and there are plenty who don't. So don't just stop at somebody who tells you, "Oh, we don't insure tax liens." Because I get a lot of people who say, "Oh, you can't insure a tax lien," and I always say, "Well, that's funny because I do." But yes, you can.
Okay, next question is, can you evict on the basis of a tax lien or tax deed?
Okay, so yes, and it just depends on the state and what stage you're in. So, like, say if you um, have a tax, you're in a tax deed state and you receive the deed, then you can go ahead and start the eviction process once you receive the deed because you now are entitled to physical possession, regardless if the title is clear or not. You're entitled to physical possession. If it's a redeemable deed state, then you have to wait until after you foreclose on that right of redemption. So you can't just, the day you get the redeemable deed or when the exemption, the redemption period expires, you can't just evict. You have to foreclose, and then once you complete that foreclosure, you can evict. And then if it's a tax lien certificate, you can never evict based on this tax lien certificate.
Okay, next question is, do you see multiple offers in most counties to buy tax deeds?
Do I see multiple offers?
In most counties when you buy tax deeds.
So in most counties with tax deeds, there is going to be an auction to purchase. So the nature of auction is there's going to be multiple offers. Some counties have over the counter tax deeds. So in that case, but you can typically go to the county and make your offer, but it may or may not have other offers just depending on the status and the type of property.
Okay, next question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how risky is tax lien investing? 10 being very risky. What are the risks?
I would say on a scale to 1 to 10, that tax liens is about a 3. And the risk in tax liens is not doing your research to understand what you're buying. You can buy swamp land, you can buy a strip of land, you can buy landlocked property that you'll never be able to step foot on because it's surrounded by other people's property. A perfect example of that is like if you've ever been in a subdivision and then everybody yard faces this little retaining pond in the back. Sometimes that'll go on the tax sale, and a lot of people will think that they're buying one of those properties, and then one that you can't do anything with that anyway. And if you could, you still couldn't because you would have to trespass on somebody's property to get to it. So that's the biggest risk. It's just really not understanding what you're doing in tax liens. So other than that, the investment itself, either you're going to get the property or you're going to get the interest. So it's and the interest is backed by state law, as well as how you obtain the property is backed by state law. So that mitigates the risk. It's just you understanding what you're doing.
Okay, next question is, can you buy certificates in different states than the one you reside in?
Yes, you can. I don't know of a state that you have to be a resident to purchase there. Now, I don't know everything about every state. Let me just make that disclaimer, but I've invested in quite a few places, and I've never ran into a situation where you have to, live in that. The county just wants its money.
Okay, we have questions rolling in. I love it. So next question is, how long are the redemption rights, and do most states have extra steps to have legal possession?
So the redemption time frame varies from state to state. So let's say here in Georgia it's 365 days. In Illinois it's 2 years. Texas it could be 6 months or 2 years, depending on if you have homestead. So that varies from state to state. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I missed it as well. We'll circle back. The next question is, do you ever buy a tax lien and then reach out to the property owner to find out what's going on?
So in my strategy, I typically have wanted the property. So I typically don't contact the homeowner until I'm filing the foreclosure of their right of redemption. Now, that being said, because you asked me what I do, there are a lot of people, they have a different strategy, and so they do contact the homeowner. So it's not unknown that people will do that, especially if you're an interest investor, you want to get your money back right away. So there are people who do that.
Okay, next question is, what is the time commitment? 40 hour a week, or?
That is a great question. It depends. It depends on how big that list is, because I always tell people, and this is kind of contrary to conventional wisdom, what people are used to doing and what a lot of people will tell you, but this is, how I created a healthy network through tax lien investing is, I look at as many properties on that list as possible. Most people will tell you, pick a couple that you like and look at those, because you're trying to maximize your time frame. But it's just my experience that if you do that, you're gonna get outbid. Like, there's always somebody's pocket who's bigger than yours, so you have to give yourself more chances. You have to increase your odds of winning. And if you're looking at 2 or 3 properties, you just decreasing your odds.
Okay, so next question is, what states do you avoid investing in and why?
California, New York, they're just high value states that they're tax deed states, where it's just going to be you might as well just try to find a regular deal on the market. Any other state? New Mexico is not really tax lien friendly. The government itself doesn't like, to hold a tax sale auction, though they do periodically. So it's just not a tax lien friendly state. Other than that, I think, the rest of the states are all a go.
Okay, so what's the URL? I can't see it through this portal.
It's GA tax. Can I share back my screen? I don't know what
You still have the ability, as the presenter. So the URL of what I'm saying is georgiataxlienbootcamp.com/Advanta.
Yes.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
And then too, they can visit georgiataxlienbootcamp.com. So next question is, could you speak a little about the mechanics of bringing cashier's checks, et cetera, to the auction?
Sure. So, we're here at Advanta, so let's just talk about that. Typically, you can, depending on what type of account you have with them, you can request a check for a certain amount. So let's say you knew you had $50,000 that you were going to spend. You can request that check, and then when you hand that check over to the county, let's say your winning bid was 49,000, then they would cut you a check back for $1,000. Now they're not typically going to cut you a check back that same day. Most counties don't have that ability, so you'll have to wait some time, but you would get the remainder. Or if you have check writing privileges with your retirement account, then you can get the money from the bank. Once you win at auction, typically you get a bid receipt, and then you have to take that receipt to the tax commissioner office to pay. So in between that time, you can go get that check, because most auctions are going to require you to pay that same day. There are some who require you to pay on site, but most counties won't. That's like kind of a heavy liability for their workers and for you, so they'll make you go to their office to pay. So you'll usually have until the auction is done, and then maybe an hour or two after that to pay. Then if you're not using your retirement funds, then you can typically pay with cashier's check. Some counties accept money orders, and some counties, not a lot, but some accept credit cards, and then some accept cash. I've never seen a county accept a personal check for that. So that's pretty much logistically how that works.
Okay, great insight. And yes, with a self-directed account, you can make that investment directly within the IRA, like Chantelle mentioned. In that scenario, Advanta will be able to send you the cashier's check prior to going to the actual tax sale, or if you do the checkbook control feature, where your IRA actually gets to be the owner of an LLC that you manage, with checkbook privileges, you actually have the ability to literally, write the exact dollar amount because you control the purse string in that scenario. And I'm happy to talk with you on the steps for that. So next question is, Georgia has 20% interest rate. After bidding, how much effective interest is actually left over for the investor?
So that's a great question. So Georgia is a interest penalty state, which means the interest is not accrued over time. It's if they come back, if you purchase today and they come back tomorrow, they will have to pay you the full 20%. So you get the full 20%. And just in terms of your business, how what expenses you have and what you calculate as the acquisition cost. Like, some people, we've had the insurance question. So if you put insurance on there, then you may, in your business practice, deduct the insurance costs from your interest to see what your effective interest is. Some people don't place insurance on the property, so you get the full 20%. It's just up to you to calculate, your acquisition cost.
Okay. All right, next question is, what is the best insurance way to perform due diligence on a potential lien?
So I would say you have to do your desktop due diligence. You're going to be, the same thing you would do for any other real estate property. You're going to want to know about the property, the year was built, the value, the area it's in, how much it could gross in terms of rent, or what you could sell it for. So you're going to have to do all that computer work, and then you're going to have to actually go look at the property. You want to know what repairs it may need. Now, you're not going to be able to typically access the inside of a tax lien property. There's not going to be an agent to show you a lockbox key, a HUD key. You're just going to be able to look at the property. And then, be able to calculate from there, how much you would have to put into the property to bring it to its highest value. So those are, the things you obviously, you're going, depending on which type, you may want to look at if there's other liens on the property. Even though your lien will supersede those liens, you just kind of want to know your position. I think those are the basics. I mean, we have a whole list of things that we teach, but just generalizing, those are the things that you would look for.
Okay, next question is, do tax lien auction takes place on the courthouse steps and or purchase online auctions?
So that's usually determined statewide and in some states countywide. So no tax lien is the same. No tax lien sale is the same. So let's say here in Georgia, it by law that's stated in the law that it has to be on the courthouse steps. So they don't do online auctions. Although there is one county, ironically, I don't know how they got away with that, but they do online. Other than that, it's courthouse steps. And then in some states, everybody does online auctions. So.
Okay, so next question is, can you provide the link for the other class? If you go back one slide, I think you're free.
Sure. It's the same link, but let's see. Is that better?
No, there it is, yes.
Yeah,
so
these all lead to the same point.
Perfect. Next question is, do you earn interest and get repaid on the entire purchase price or only the amount that of back taxes?
Great. So you always earn interest on the amount you paid at auction.
Okay. Next question.
If the back tax is $1,000, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finish.
So I was just saying, if the back taxes was $1,000, but you bid the property up to $10,000, then in order for them to redeem, they would have to pay you the $10,000 plus that interest rate.
Okay. So next question is, are the tax lien options 100% guaranteed for interest or free and clear title if on an auction?
Is it 100% guaranteed
for interest or free clear title at auction?
I don't like saying things is 100% guaranteed, but these are things that's written in the state law. There are things that can hinder that if you don't understand what you're doing. But for the most part, yeah, because these are state law. Like, let's say, again, I'm just taking Georgia because I know the law in my head, where the law specifically says that, you get the property if the person doesn't come to redeem, and it also says what interest rate you get if you do redeem. Now, that being said, again, there's that middle ground with, yeah, you might get a free and clear title, but on a property that you can't use. Hopefully it makes sense.
Next question, and we still have, just a few more. So that question is, with foreclosure, you get a foreclosure list in advance. So my question is, can you get a tax lien list in advance, and where is it found?
So yeah, so legally, tax sales have to be in the legal organ of the county. It's the same little small newspaper that most people ignore. It's where they file foreclosures, incorporations, bankruptcy notices. Tax liens are also found there. So that's where you're going to always, no matter what, find it. That being said, many counties do have this information on their websites.
Okay, next question is, do you do due diligence on every property on the list before bidding?
Absolutely. I don't want to lose my money because I didn't do it. So, I never had money that I could just, I never had $10,000 I could just throw away. So absolutely.
Okay, so next question is, if redemption period expires, is there an option to let go of the tax lien, or are you forced to buy the property or foreclose on the property?
In most states, you can let it go, but it depends on what type of instrument. Like say it was a tax lien certificate, you definitely could do that. But if it's a tax deed or redeemable deed, then remember you have interest in that property. So now, when it comes time to pay the taxes, they're going to be looking at you because you have an interest. So you may share that interest with the homeowner, the mortgage company, but you're still now going to be on that property in terms of paying the next year's or subsequent taxes.
Okay, next question that came in is, can you pay via ACH or wire?
That would be up to the county because some counties can, high speed can accommodate that. But most of the counties I know, they're not even equipped to accept a wire.
Okay, I have a few more questions. So how often do you actually gain title of the property?
So that depends. I mean, me personally, I have less than a 1% redemption rate, which means most of the properties that I purchased, I ended up owning them. But that was my strategy, because then if you want the interest, then you're looking at a whole different type of property. So it's just, you're going to buy properties that have a high probability of not being redeemed, so.
Okay, just a few more. So what liens stay with the property that you should be aware of?
The only surviving liens are, and this depends on the county, our other county liens. Other than that, the tax lien is going to supersede IRS, mortgage, all those other liens. So that the other county liens would be like a demolition lien, a code violation lien, sometime a child support lien could be a county lien. But in many cases, you can negotiate those other county liens as well, because ultimately the county wants the property to be back in the tax paying position.
Okay, so I hear tax certificate bidders pay as low as 2% or zero. Why is that?
So in those cases, those states are what are called bid down states. And what you're actually bidding on is who is willing to pay the lowest interest rate. And then if the person doesn't redeem, then you can get the property. So that's just how that state works in terms of the law.
Okay, next question is why wouldn't the mortgage company bid on these properties so they can protect their interests?
Well, in many cases, mortgages are based on amortization. So in a lot of cases, they may have already received, most of the payoff. And in many cases, they have insurance that they can file. It's just like foreclosure insurance. Like if the person doesn't pay, they just file for the insurance instead of going through the process of trying to get the property. Because remember, mortgage companies aren't in the property business, they're in the money making business. So and then sometimes they're just not aware, they haven't really kept up with the paperwork, and a lot of people don't believe that, but there's a lot of inefficiencies in mortgage companies. So in many cases, they don't even know that the property has gone, in foreclosure. And then lastly, when people ask that question, I think a lot of people don't realize that 50% of homes in America don't have mortgages. So a lot of times there's no mortgage on the property.
Okay, there's just three more questions. So are court auctions subject to buyers inheriting any unpaid liens on the property?
I didn't hear that.
So are court auctions subject to the buyers inheriting any unpaid liens on the property? You may have answered that one from another.
Are court auctions?
Subject to the buyers inheriting any unpaid liens on the property.
Oh, okay. I just got so threw off with the tax lien. No, your lien supersedes those other liens, and then at the point of foreclosure, you're not only foreclosing on the homeowner, you're foreclosing on all those other liens. Because remember, those liens can redeem you, as well. And if they don't, then you can just foreclose on them. If it's a tax deed, then the county has already done that part. So then you would just have to later on, if you want a marketable title, you just have to file a quiet title.
Okay, and very last question is, can you share the list of due diligence? I know if they attend the free webinar free class that you're giving, that's likely to be included in there, but he's asking, can you share the list of due diligence?
I did. I went through a whole 20 things, I think. So I don't have any written material here with me to share with you all. So you would have to take the free class. And then if you, wanted us to help you further, we have other classes. So.
Okay, so we're just a few minutes over, but Chantelle, as always, I really appreciate your time, your knowledge sharing, great information, great questions to the audience. Any last minute thoughts you want to share before we disconnect?
Sure. One, this was a pleasure being here as usual. Two, just for everybody who came today, thank you. And definitely know that tax liens is a very viable way, even still today, to create, significant wealth, grow your retirement funds, and even with the state of COVID, just getting on the understanding what you're doing now is definitely going to pay off, because a lot of counties are holding inventory because they can't, physically have the sale, but they still have a lot of delinquent property. So just put yourself in position now to be able to take advantage of that. And that's it. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
You're most certainly welcome. Again, if you have any questions related to self-directed IRAs, again, feel free to just, give me a call, send me an email, and check out our website, advantaira.com. Thank you so much, everyone.